up, and welcome back to Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. As always, I am your host, Brandon Silvers. Hope y'all had a great week. I'm going to keep it short and sweet today, but there were a couple things that I had to touch on. Okay, you probably guessed it, but I got to talk about the always ridiculous Dillon Brooks. In case you were living under a rock, you know that our dear friend Dillon had one of the most hilarious endings to a season that I can remember. Dillon in the Memphis Grizzlies, a 2 seed, lost to my Los Angeles Lakers, a 7 seed in the first round, which is hilarious. And it becomes more hilarious with the context of the Shannon Sharpe kerfuffle from earlier this year, which also happened during a Lakers game. And it becomes most hilarious when you look at Dillon's behavior and play during the series. The Grizzlies came out and announced that Dillon, who's a free agent this summer, will not be brought back next season, but they didn't just leave it there, which would have been plenty enough to get Dillon dragged. They had to add that he won't be brought back, quote, under any circumstances. Now, do you know how many possible circumstances there are in the world? Infinite. The team could be eaten by literal Grizzlies. They could move back to Vancouver. Moses could show up with some tablets with "Bring Back Dillon Brooks" etched in stone on them. Doesn't matter. The Grizzlies aren't going to do it, and they had to be clear about that. Okay, so why not? Why won't they bring Dillon back under any circumstances? Well, Dillon wants $25 million a year and an opportunity to showcase all he can do on the basketball court. Don't we all? Unfortunately for Dillon, we've seen a lot of what he can do, and is not good. He can't dribble. He can't create for others. He's fallen off a cliff as a shooter to the point that the Lakers were leaving him wide open, and he was still bricking threes. He's not athletic. He takes terrible shots. He takes too many shots. His only plus attribute is that he's a physical defender who tries to annoy and frustrate whoever he's guarding. I wouldn't say he's necessarily great with his positioning or moving his feet or anything like that on defense, just annoying and physical. And look, I'm all for believing in yourself, but wanting that kind of money and an expanded role based on what he's shown us is an astounding lack of self-awareness that I haven't encountered since the 6 months prior to me shaving my head. Now, Dillon can be a decent role player, I think, probably coming off the bench for an actual contender, but that's about it. That's not even his biggest crime, though. His biggest crime is that he's a pain in the ass. And I honestly don't even know how we got here with him. I mean, I remember him at Oregon with the hair that made him look like a Little Richard impersonator. Seriously, look at this wop baba loobop shit on his head. Doing goofy shit like committing the worst flop of all time, or having Coach K give him a stern talking to after he took and made a 3 at the end of a game against Duke instead of just letting the clock run out. But this version of Dillon feels new. He kind of adopted the personality of the team. Now, Dillon was never as fun and lovable as the Grizzlies were before their series with the Warriors last playoffs, but I don't remember him being a certified jackass until this season. I mean, really, if I'd had to bet money on who would have become the most hated on this team, it would have been on Desmond Bane and his alligator arms. Maybe he'll step up now that Dillon's gone. But Dillon wasn't even someone I really considered until he made Shannon Sharpe try to storm the court. And really, that interaction was the full Dillon Brooks experience for this season. He started talking shit to Shannon, and when Shannon got all fired up and ripping yarn off his sweater and everything, yelling back at him, Dillon took off into the locker room, leaving his teammates and T. Morant to fight his battle for him. And we saw it again in the series with the Lakers when he ran his mouth about LeBron being old and not respecting him or anyone until they give him 40. Then it took roughly 4 minutes into the next game to see that he was not built for this life. He's just sitting there on the bench looking shook. The game was essentially over by halftime, but Dillon wasn't even around to see the full thing because he got ejected for Chris Pauling LeBron. What's worse is that after the game, he ducked out of the media availability. If only he'd had that idea after game 2. In fact, he didn't talk to the media after any of the 3 road losses and got fined by the league for it. You know how scary you have to be to pay $25K to be quiet? But he did talk to the media some, specifically to blame them for portraying him as a villain. He tried to say that they played a role in him being ejected in game 3. Again, he hit a man in the penis, but it was the media's fault he got ejected. I just can't wrap my head around how this man can walk around like Razor Ramon all year, but then claim it's not his fault we think he's a villain. Now, you can be a pain in the ass or you can be a bad player, but you can't be both. And Dillon found this out the hard way. See, the Grizzlies have a culture problem. They are not serious. They proved that last postseason and again this postseason. And the player who has set the tone for the culture problem is Ja Morant. He talks just as much shit as Dillon, if not more. They're fine in the West. And comes with the added bonus of pretending to be Bishop from Juice off the court. I mean, for all he does, Dillon's never been accused of threatening to shoot anybody, probably because we all know he'd miss, but still, he's just a pain in the ass. But he's also not a great player. Ja is. So they're not getting rid of Ja, and that's just the way life goes. The better you are at something, the more bad behavior will be tolerated. I mean, the Grizzlies weren't out here releasing harsh statements about Ja when he had his gun in the strip club. I mean, this man went to a strip club named Shotgun Willie's with his noisy cricket little tiny gun from Men in Black, and they were just like, oh, we're going to send him to do some, I don't know, breathing and talk to Jalen Rose's hairline. So I think getting rid of Dillon is simply a band-aid for a much larger problem. They'll certainly be able to replace his production, probably with his twin, David Roddy, and they are removing a distraction, but it's a drop in the bucket. I am curious to see where he lands, and hopefully not the Lakers, and if he changes his behavior when he gets there. Speaking of people leaving jobs in hilarious fashion, let's talk about Antonio Brown. Last time we saw him on a football field, he was skipping off it shirtless in the middle of a game, which is actually the most mature and responsible thing he's ever done. He's currently the president of whatever Kanye is doing with Donda Sports, because of course he is, and he just bought a football team. That's right, in March, he became the owner of the National Arena League's Albany Empire, and it's gone about how you would expect. Now, the Empire are back-to-back NAL champs, but they've gotten off to a slow start this year, which I imagine has a great deal to do with the fact that they have not been getting paid. They actually threatened to sit out a game, but were shown payment confirmation, so crisis averted there, until they checked after the game and noticed that they hadn't actually been paid. Bamboozled. Players confronted team officials on the bus ride back to the hotel, and when they actually got back to their rooms, the players who had led the charge found that their room keys no longer worked. Turns out Antonio had sent word to the hotel to cancel those rooms, and these guys had to negotiate with the hotel staff just to be able to get their stuff. Now, the story is funny in the sense that it's both absurd and predictable, but I also feel bad for the players and coaches who had to deal with it. And the Antonio Brown story is a really depressing one as well. This is a guy who overcame an incredibly tough childhood and almost didn't play college football at all due to his grades and behavior issues. He ended up walking onto the team at Central Michigan. He had a good enough career there that he ended up getting picked in the 6th round of the NFL draft, which is a hell of an accomplishment after all he overcame, but 6th-round picks aren't expected to do much. I mean, Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick and is brought up all the time because of how incredible he turned out to be, but there's only 7 rounds in the draft. Antonio manages to not only make the team, but becomes arguably the best player at his position. But he can't keep it together. This had all the makings of a Disney movie, but he can't help but self-destruct at every turn. And I wonder how long he can keep this up. At some point, you would think there is going to be some sort of an actual consequence. I mean, it's wild that he's been in so much legal trouble, but hasn't had to do anything outside of community service. And honestly, we're getting to the point where like a severe legal consequence is actually going to be on the better end of the spectrum for how this all turns out. It makes sense that Kanye hired him for his company because I see a lot of parallels between those two, including that sinking feeling that is all going to come crashing down eventually. Let's move on to something a little bit lighter. I love track and field. You should love it too. It's such a pure form of competition. We're going to line up and whoever runs the fastest, throws the furthest, or jumps the highest wins. Beautiful. And I have no idea how they failed so badly at marketing the sport here in America other than during the Olympics, because you really understand the objective of what's going on fairly easily just by watching it. The technique is harder to figure out, but I don't know how much you have to know about that to really enjoy it. Also, track and field has some of the best personalities in the sports world, and great personalities lead to great beef, and who doesn't love a good conflict? For instance, the 2020 Olympic gold medalist in the 100-meter dash is Marcel Jacobs. I first must note that Marcel won that gold medal for Italy, his mother's birth country, but his first name is Lamont and he is black. Mike Tirico must have been so proud. Since winning that gold medal, Marcel has been injured, and when he has run, he hasn't been very fast. As a result, he is not the current world champion. That would be American Fred Curley, who is fast. Fred was on a podcast recently and he was asked about one of Marcel's recent races where Marcel lost, and Fred laughed and he basically said that Marcel ain't got that dog in him. Now, it's worth noting that Fred's personal best is faster than Marcel's, but they haven't raced each other since Marcel won that gold medal. Marcel caught wind of this and he hopped on Instagram and said, quote, "Lions do not turn around when they hear small dogs bark." Now, I don't know how factually accurate that is. I think a lion would turn around. I can't imagine lions hear a lot of barking, so they would probably be curious enough about the noise to turn around and see what was up. But Marcel is claiming to be a lion and apparently confirming that there is no dog in him, only lion, and that he's king of the jungle. Fred then posted a pic of a lion roaring. He had apparently come around on the idea of Marcel being a lion, but like me, does believe that a lion would react to a dog barking, as Fred, who we can assume does have that dog in him, barked at Marcel the lion and got a response. Marcel then posted a pic of him out-leaning Fred for the gold medal with the caption, "Whenever you want and wherever you want, but remember, when it mattered more, it ended like this." And honestly, this response started off good, but then it turned bad because it seems like he was hedging, like, hey, I might lose this time, but remember that one time that I did beat you? And that's kind of weak to me. Fred responded that he hopes Marcel keeps that same energy. Then he tweeted at the Diamond League, which is track's pro league, their NBA, to set up a one-on-one race between the two of them. Now, I doubt the Diamond League is going to do this, but whew, boy, do I want them to. They should just go race on the street or something. Bump the Diamond League. If they don't like money, let me sell the tickets. All the greats have done this. And there was a period in track and field where it felt like everyone was trying to be friendly with each other, but rivalries are so much better. Get out there and hate each other and race. Doesn't even have to be a race. It could be a jump, like what's happening between long jumpers Quenisha Burks and Tara Davis Woodall. Now, something had to come before this, but I don't know what. But Quenisha posted a video on Twitter of her world-leading jump this year and said, quote, "I don't need the hype," with hype in quotation marks. "My results making enough noise," with noise in all caps. Tara must be one of those reacting lions herself because she tweeted out hype in quotation marks. Quenisha switched over to Instagram and posted a story that was a picture of herself, the words top 2 but not number 2, and a screenshot of the world leaderboard with her world leading jump at the number 1 spot, but she didn't crop out the long jumper who was second in the world because that was Tara. Tara couldn't let this go now, so she hopped on IG herself, where she recorded a video for an IG story and tagged Quenisha. In the video, she offered to jump against Quenisha whenever. She bet $5,000 on it, and she offered to pay for Quenisha's flight. But that wasn't even the coldest part. That would be that Tara was on her husband's Instagram account doing all this because, as she explained, Quenisha had blocked Tara and Tara wanted to make sure that she got the message. That's wild as hell, and I love it. Now, to me, you should absolutely block people on social media and protect your peace. Unless they are your biggest competitor and you keep throwing shots at them. That's right up there with Dillon Brooks not talking to the media. The heart and determination and problem-solving skills shown by Tara to overcome all that and get her message across is damn near inspirational. And honestly, now I know who they are. Like I said, I love track, but trying to watch it here is damn near impossible. Real, genuine rivalries like this will at least get me to seek out more information. And there's no way I'm alone in that. Only thing that would make it better is if they had these one-on-one battles take place. But I'm willing to wait for a full meet, but they better market the hell out of it. And mic up the athletes. Let's hear the trash talk. Take the mics away from baseball where they're annoying the players in the middle of a game by asking them what they like to put on their hot dogs or whatever, and give it to the track and field athletes so that we can actually hear them be entertaining. Now, if you're interested like I am, the track and field US championships will take place between July 6th through the 9th, and athletes can qualify there to participate in the World Championships that are going to take place August 19th through the 27th. All right, I told y'all short and sweet, so that's going to do it for me for this week. This has been another episode of Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. Appreciate y'all hanging out. Keep on liking, subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing, and I will catch y'all next week.